What happens when one of Britain's most respected actors walks onto a daytime talk show and finds himself under attack from a host who refuses to let him speak? In just 42 seconds, Denise Welch would go from confident interviewer to the most talked about villain on television, all because she couldn't handle what Gary Oldman had to say. Gary Oldman arrived at the Loose Women's studio that morning, expecting a friendly chat about his latest film project. He'd done hundreds of interviews over his decades-long career. He knew how these things worked. Smile, answer some questions about the movie, maybe tell a funny story from set, and be on his way. But the moment he sat down on that purple sofa, something felt different. The panel that day consisted of Denise Welch, Ruth Langsford, Janet Street Porter, and Kay Adams. The audience applauded as Gary settled into his seat, giving them a warm wave. He looked relaxed in his dark jacket and casual shirt, ready for what he thought would be an easy conversation. Denise started things off pleasantly enough. "Gary, wonderful to have you here. Now, you've got this new film coming out, and I have to say, the trailer looks absolutely brilliant." Gary smiled. "Thank you so much. Yes, we worked really hard on it. It's a passion project that's been years in the making." "Tell us about your character," Ruth chimed in, leaning forward with genuine interest. Gary began to explain. "Well, he's a man who's lost everything and is trying to rebuild his life. It's a story about redemption, about second chances, and I think a lot of people will relate to." But before he could finish, Denise cut in. "Speaking of second chances, Gary, I want to talk about something else. You've been quite outspoken lately about the way actors are treated in the industry." Gary nodded slowly. "Yes, I have. I think it's important to speak up about things that matter." Denise's tone shifted. There was an edge to her voice now. "But don't you think you're being a bit precious? I mean, you're a wealthy, successful actor. Surely you can't complain about how hard you have it?" The audience went quiet. Gary's smile faded slightly. "I'm not complaining about my own situation. I'm talking about younger actors, people starting out who are being taken advantage of." "Taken advantage of?" Denise laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. "Gary, these people choose to be actors. Nobody forces them. If they don't like the conditions, they can do something else." Janet Street Porter jumped in. "I think what Gary's trying to say is that there should be better protections in place." Denise shot Janet a look. "I know what he's trying to say, Janet. I'm asking him why he thinks actors deserve special treatment when there are nurses and teachers who work twice as hard for a fraction of the money." Gary straightened in his seat. "I'm not saying actors deserve special treatment. I'm saying everyone deserves to be treated fairly. That includes nurses and teachers too. This isn't a competition about who has it worse." "Isn't it though?" Denise pressed. "Because you've been going on talk shows, giving interviews, talking about how tough actors have it. Meanwhile, real people with real problems are struggling to pay their bills." Kay Adams tried to intervene. "Denise, I think we should let Gary finish his." "No, Kay, I want to hear this," Denise interrupted. "Gary, tell me, when was the last time you worried about paying your electricity bill?" Gary's jaw tightened. "That's not the point I'm making. That's exactly the point." Denise's voice rose. "You live in a bubble. You have no idea what ordinary people go through." "And you do?" Gary's tone remained calm, but his eyes showed his frustration. "Denise, you're sitting here on national television, getting paid very well to have this conversation. Don't pretend you're speaking for ordinary people." The audience gasped. Ruth Langsford's eyes widened. Janet Street Porter sat back in her chair, watching the exchange unfold. Denise's face flushed red. "How dare you? I came from nothing. I worked my way up. I know exactly what struggle looks like." "I'm sure you do," Gary replied evenly. "And I respect that, but that doesn't give you the right to dismiss what I'm saying without actually listening to it." "I am listening," Denise shot back. "I'm listening to a millionaire actor complain about his industry while the rest of the country is falling apart." Gary leaned forward. "You're not listening. You're waiting for me to stop talking so you can attack me again. There's a difference." Kay tried once more. "Maybe we should take a breath." And no, Denise cut her off again. "I want to know why Gary thinks his problems are more important than everyone else's." "I never said that." Gary's voice was firm now. "Not once have I said that." "You're putting words in my mouth." "Am I?" Denise challenged. "Because that's certainly what it sounds like. To me." Ruth finally spoke up. "Denise, perhaps we could approach this differently. Gary, what specific changes would you like to see in the industry?" Gary turned to Ruth, grateful for the reasonable question. Thank you, Ruth. Look, I think there should be better mental health support for performers. I think there should be fair working hours. I think young actors shouldn't be pressured into situations that make them uncomfortable just because they're afraid of losing opportunities. Mental health support, Denise repeated mockingly. Of course, because actors are so fragile, aren't they? They need special care. Janet Street Porter shook her head. Denise, that's not fair. Mental health affects everyone. I know that, Janet, Denise snapped, but we're not talking about everyone. We're talking about Gary and his actor friends who apparently can't handle a bit of pressure. Gary's patience was wearing thin. A bit of pressure? Denise, I'm talking about 18-hour days, 7 days a week. I'm talking about people being screamed at on set. I'm talking about young women being told they need to lose weight or they'll be fired. Is that just a bit of pressure to you? If they don't like it, they can quit, Denise said dismissively. They shouldn't have to quit, Gary countered. The industry should be better. Should, Denise mocked. The world should be a lot of things, Gary, but we live in reality. People need to toughen up. Or, Gary said slowly, people in positions of power could choose to treat others with basic human decency. Denise laughed sharply. Basic human decency? That's rich coming from someone in Hollywood. What's that supposed to mean? Gary asked. Oh, come on. Denise waved her hand. We all know what goes on in your industry. The egos, the tantrums, the demands. And you want to lecture me about decency? Gary took a deep breath. I'm not lecturing anyone. I came here to talk about my film and to have a conversation about making the industry better for everyone. But you've turned this into something else entirely. I've turned it into reality, Denise said. Someone needs to tell you that the rest of us don't care about your first world problems. The audience was completely silent now. Even the crew behind the cameras had stopped moving. Ruth tried to lighten the mood. Well, I for one am very interested in Gary's film. Gary, can you tell us about working with your co-stars? But Denise wasn't done. No, Ruth, I'm not finished. Gary, I want you to explain to the women watching at home who are working 2 jobs to feed their kids why they should care about whether some actor has to work long hours. Gary stood up. I don't have to explain anything to you, Denise. You're not interested in a real conversation. You just want a grandstand. Grandstand? Denise's voice went up an octave. I'm asking you legitimate questions. No, you're not, Gary said firmly. You're twisting everything I say and attacking me for things I haven't even said. This isn't an interview. It's an ambush. Kay Adams stood up too, trying to calm things down. Gary, please, let's just. I'm sorry, Kay, Gary said, looking at her with genuine regret. You seem lovely. So do you, Ruth and Janet. But I'm not going to sit here and be insulted on national television. Denise stood up now as well. Oh, so you're going to run away? Can't handle a tough interview? A tough interview? Gary's voice rose for the first time. Denise, you haven't asked me a single genuine question. You've just been trying to make me look bad from the moment I sat down. Maybe you make yourself look bad. Denise shot back. The other panelists looked mortified. Ruth put her hand on Denise's arm. Denise, stop. But Denise shook her off. No, Ruth. Someone needs to say it. These celebrities come on our show and expect us to just fawn all over them. Well, I'm not doing it. Gary shook his head. Slowly. Nobody expects you to fawn, but basic respect isn't too much to ask for. Respect? Denise laughed bitterly. You want respect? Earn it. I've spent 40 years earning it, Gary said quietly. I've worked hard. I've been professional. I've treated people well, but clearly that doesn't matter to you. Janet Street Porter stood up. Gary, I'm so sorry about this. This isn't how we normally. I know, Janet, Gary interrupted gently. I can see that, but I think it's best if I go. He started to remove his microphone. Denise wasn't finished. Typical. Things get a little bit real and you can't handle it. Gary paused. He looked at Denise with an expression that was part disappointment, part disbelief. Denise, do you even hear yourself? You've been rude, dismissive, and hostile from the start. And now you're trying to make it seem like I'm the problem? You are the problem, Denise insisted. You and everyone like you who think they're better than the rest of us. I've never said I'm better than anyone. Gary's voice was steady but firm. But I won't be treated like this. Not by you, not by anyone. Ruth stood up and walked over to Gary. Gary, I'm truly sorry. Please don't let this. It's not your fault, Ruth, Gary said kindly. You've been nothing but professional. Kay Adams looked close to tears. We really wanted this to be a nice interview. I know you did, Gary said. He looked at Denise one last time. I hope you're proud of yourself. Denise crossed her arms. Actually, I am. I'm not afraid to ask the tough questions. Those weren't tough questions, Gary said. They were attacks. There's a difference. And if you can't see that, then I feel sorry for you. Save your pity, Denise snapped. Gary finished removing his microphone and handed it to a crew member. Thank you, he said to them quietly. Then he looked at the audience. I'm sorry you had to witness this. You all seem lovely and deserve better than this show. Today. The audience applauded. It started with a few people and then grew until most of them were clapping. Some were even standing. Denise looked around, shocked. Are you seriously applauding him for walking out? They're applauding him for having dignity? Janet Street Porter said sharply. Gary nodded to the audience, then turned and walked off the set. As he left, you could hear Denise's voice rising behind him. Fine, go. We don't need you anyway. Ruth's voice came next. Denise, what is wrong with you? What? I was just doing my job. That wasn't your job, Kay said, her voice shaking. That was cruel. Oh, please, Denise scoffed. He's a big boy. He can handle it. Clearly he couldn't, Janet said, because you drove him away. I didn't drive him anywhere, Denise argued. He chose to leave. Because you gave him no choice, Ruth said firmly. As Gary walked down the corridor away from the studio, a producer rushed up to him. Mr. Oldman, I'm so sorry about what happened. That was completely unacceptable. Gary stopped and turned. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything we can do? Would you consider coming back? And Gary held up his hand politely. I don't think that would be a good idea, but thank you for the offer. The producer nodded sadly. I understand. Again, our sincere apologies. Gary walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Back in the studio, chaos had erupted. The audience was buzzing with conversation. The other panelists were arguing with Denise. I cannot believe you just did that, Ruth said, her voice tight with anger. Did what? Denise asked defensively. I asked him some questions. You attacked him, Kay said. From the moment he sat down, you were looking for a fight. I was holding him accountable, Denise insisted. For what? Janet demanded. For caring about his colleagues? For wanting better working conditions? What exactly did he do wrong? He was being sanctimonious, Denise said. No, he wasn't, Ruth countered. He was being thoughtful and articulate. And you couldn't stand it. That's not true, Denise said, but her voice was less certain now. Then why did you keep interrupting him? Kay asked. Why didn't you let him finish a single sentence? Denise looked around at her co-hosts. Their faces were hard, disappointed. Even the audience members who were still in the studio were shaking their heads. I just thought, Denise started, then stopped. I mean, he's so successful, and what? Ruth asked coldly. Successful people don't deserve respect? Is that what you're saying? No, Denise trailed off. Because that's what it sounded like, Janet said. It sounded like you resented him for being successful. I don't resent him, Denise protested weakly. Then why did you treat him like that? Kay asked. Denise had no answer. In the control room, the director was on the phone. Yes, I know. I'm looking at the footage now. It's bad, really bad. An assistant director shook his head. I've never seen anything like that. She just kept going at him. Should we cut to commercial? Someone asked. We're already in commercial, the director said tiredly. And when we come back, we need to do damage control. Back in the studio, the argument continued. Do you even realize what you've done? Ruth asked Denise. You've embarrassed the show. You've embarrassed yourself. I was trying to have a real conversation, Denise said, but she sounded less convinced now. That wasn't a conversation, Janet said bluntly. That was bullying. The word hung in the air. I wasn't bullying anyone, Denise said quietly. Yes, you were, Kay said. You were aggressive, you were dismissive, and you wouldn't let him speak. What else would you call it? Denise looked down at her hands. For the first time since Gary had left, she seemed unsure of herself. She started. I wanted to challenge him. There's a difference between challenging someone and attacking them, Ruth said. And you crossed that line about 5 minutes into the interview. A producer appeared on set, looking stressed. Ladies, we're back in 30 seconds. Denise, we need to address what just happened. Address it how? Denise asked. Apologize, the producer said simply. On air. Now, apologize? Denise looked shocked. He's the one who walked out? Because you drove him to it, the producer said firmly. Denise, I've been producing this show for 8 years. I've never seen a guest treated like that. Never. Denise opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. 10 seconds. Someone called out. The lights came back on. The cameras focused on the panel. Ruth spoke first. Well, that was certainly unexpected. We want to apologize to our viewers and to Gary Oldman for what just happened. That's not the kind of interview we aim to conduct on this show. Denise sat silently, her arms still crossed. Denise? Kay prompted. Do you want to say anything? Denise looked at the camera. I stand by my questions. If Gary couldn't handle them, that's his problem, not mine. The other 3 panelists looked at each other in disbelief. Right, Janet said slowly. Well, I think I speak for the rest of us when I say that's not how we feel. The audience murmured in agreement. Gary Oldman is a respected actor and a thoughtful person, Ruth continued. He deserved better than what happened here today. I agree, Kay said, and I hope he knows that not all of us share Denise's approach. Denise finally spoke up. Oh, so now you're all ganging up on me? We're not ganging up on you, Janet said. We're pointing out that you were wrong. I wasn't wrong, Denise insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. The show limped on for another 20 minutes, but the energy was gone. The audience remained subdued. The other panelists were clearly uncomfortable, and Denise sat in stony silence, occasionally glancing at the others with resentment. When the show finally ended, the panelists stood up without speaking to each other. Ruth, Kay, and Janet walked off together, talking in low voices. Denise stood alone for a moment, looking around the empty studio. A young production assistant approached her nervously. Miss Welch, the producer would like to see you in his office. Denise nodded slowly and followed the assistant. Meanwhile, Gary Oldman was already in his car, heading back to London. His phone was ringing constantly, but he ignored it. He just wanted to get home, away from the cameras and the chaos. His publicist finally got through. Gary, I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? I'm fine, Gary said. Frustrated, but fine. The clip is already going viral, his publicist told him. Everyone's on your side. They're saying you handled it with incredible grace. I just wanted to leave with my dignity intact, Gary said. You did. More than that, his publicist assured him. You showed everyone watching how a professional behaves under pressure. Denise Welch, on the other hand. I don't want to talk about her, Gary interrupted. I just want to forget this whole morning happened. I understand, his publicist said, but I think you should know that other talk shows are calling. They want you to come on and tell your side of the story. There is no story, Gary said firmly. I went on a talk show. The host was rude. I left. That's it. I'm not going to turn this into a media circus. You're a better person than most, his publicist said with a laugh. Back at the studio, Denise was sitting in the producer's office. He was not happy. Denise, what on earth were you thinking? He asked. I was trying to ask challenging questions, Denise said. You were hostile from the start, the producer said. I watched the whole thing. You didn't give him a chance. He's a celebrity, Denise said. He can handle it. That's not the point, the producer said wearily. The point is that we invited him here as a guest. We're supposed to treat our guests with respect, even when they're being. Being what? The producer interrupted. Thoughtful? Articulate? Passionate about an issue? What exactly did he do wrong? Denise had no answer. I'll tell you what he did wrong, the producer continued. Nothing. He did absolutely nothing wrong. You, on the other hand, just created a public relations nightmare for this show. I was just doing my job, Denise said weakly. No, you weren't, the producer said. Your job is to interview guests, not attack them. Your job is to create interesting television, not uncomfortable television. Your job is to represent this show well, and today you failed at all 3. Denise looked down. I'm getting calls from the network, the producer said. They're not happy. The audience complaints are already coming in, and Gary Oldman's people are considering legal action. Denise's head snapped up. Legal action? For what? For creating a hostile environment, the producer said. For ambushing him on live television? For damaging his reputation by suggesting he doesn't care about ordinary people. I didn't say that, Denise protested. You implied it, the producer said. Repeatedly, And now we have to deal with the fallout. The office fell silent. What happens now? Denise finally asked. Now? The producer sighed. Now we try to fix this mess, and you need to think very carefully about how you conduct interviews going forward. Denise nodded slowly. You can go, the producer said. But Denise, this can't happen again, ever. As Denise left the office, she passed Ruth, Kay, and Janet in the hallway. They looked at her but didn't speak. The message was clear. Gary Oldman never returned to Loose Women. The clip of his departure was watched millions of times online. People analyzed every word, every expression, every moment of the disastrous interview. And in the end, one thing became crystal clear. When a host forgets that interviews are conversations, not confrontations, when they let their own agenda override basic courtesy, when they mistake aggression for journalism, everyone loses. But especially the host who thought she was too important to show respect.